The gates creaked open. A wave of blinding sunlight flooded the dark corridor. The sand outside shimmered like fire. Metal clanked, wood creaked. Somewhere, a lion roared. Then came the roar of the crowd. But the people weren't here for politics. They were here for blood. Tens of thousands packed into the Colosseum, nobles, merchants, slaves, even the emperor himself. A new gladiator stepped into the arena. Born in chains, but the moment he was captured by slavers during a border raid, that name was taken. He became property, sold to a ludus, a gladiator training school. His name had once been Lucius, a blacksmith's apprentice from the outskirts of Capua. The ludus was no ordinary prison. It was a factory of violence. Instructors were brutal ex-soldiers. Food was functional. Training was relentless. Fighters were beaten into shape with wooden swords and shield drills. And when they weren't training, they were sleeping next to the men they might one day kill. There were different kinds of gladiators. Murmelos with heavy armor and broad swords. Thracians with curved blades and small shields. Women threw flowers into the arena, and some gladiators even received fan letters. Retieri, lightly armored, using nets and tridents like fishermen of death. Lucius trained as a secutor, a relentless pursuer. His helmet was smooth and featureless, designed to counter the retiarius. His mission: hunt. But very few ever saw it, and fewer still lived long enough to enjoy it. But inside, he was still human. He still dreamed of home. The price of survival, despite the horrors. Life as a gladiator had strange perks. Noon brought executions. Criminals burned, crucified, or forced to fight each other with no armor. Gladiators were both slaves and superstars. They were painted on tavern walls. The emperor watched closely. If a gladiator was wounded and couldn't go on, he raised a finger, missio, asking for mercy. The crowd would decide. Live. The best fighters became legends. The worst lasted seconds. Lucius survived. He won. And with each victory, he was awarded money, gifts, and fame. But freedom? That was harder. The highest honor a gladiator could receive was the rudis, a wooden sword, symbolizing freedom. To win, you didn't just have to kill, you had to perform. When the boy tripped and fell, the crowd howled for blood. The theater of death, the games were never just about fighting. They were carefully choreographed spectacles of dominance and drama, Rome's ultimate propaganda machine. Morning shows featured animal hunts, elephants, bears, leopards dragged from across the empire. Then came the main event, man versus man. The crowd demanded drama. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Death, rare but real. Often used as novelty, they were thrown into matches against animals or other women for the amusement of the elite. Lucius had seen both. He once faced a young boy barely 16, trembling, eyes wide. They clashed for minutes that felt like hours. Lucius hesitated. Gladiators waited in these depths, listening to the stomping feet above, smelling the blood in the air, preparing for fate. He thought of the people cheering above, so far removed from the fear, the heat, the pain. He looked at the emperor. No sign. The crowd grew louder. He raised his blade and struck. He didn't enjoy the kill, but he knew the rules. The arena's game of power tall, ruthless, fast. The crowd was hungry for a legend's fall. Not all gladiators were slaves. Some were octorati, Roman citizens who voluntarily gave up their rights to fight for money, glory, or escape from debt. Others were criminals, sentenced to die in the arena. Some nobles sent their political enemies there as public humiliation. Lucius was clipped in the ribs. Cassius lost a piece of his helm. The match went on longer than any expected. And then there were the women. Yes, female gladiators or gladiatresses fought too. The arena didn't care about gender, just spectacle. Beneath the Colosseum, below the sands, a world existed few ever saw. Tunnels and cages, elevators powered by slaves, trapdoors that released animals mid-fight, Lucius often sat in silence before a match, staring at the blood on his boots. To them, it was theater. To him, it was war. A fight to the death, or something more. Then came the fight that changed everything. A massive festival. 10,000 people in the stands. Senators in togas, vestal virgins with garlands. Even the emperor's daughter watched behind a veil. Lucius was matched with a champion named Cassius, undefeated, armored like a god. The horn blew. They circled, struck, blocked. Dust and sweat mixed with blood. They were both exhausted, bleeding, breathing hard. He had seen too much, done too much. The crowd had loved him for spilling blood. Then Lucius saw it. Cassius's footing slipped slightly. He struck. Cassius collapsed, disarmed, defeated. Lucius stood over him, blade raised. The crowd screamed for death, but something in Lucius shifted. Maybe it was mercy. Maybe it was madness. He dropped the blade. The arena went silent. Then, slowly, applause, then cheers. Lucius had earned something rare, not just victory, but respect. The wooden sword. Days later, Lucius was summoned before the emperor. He was handed the rudis, the wooden sword of freedom. His contract was over. His chains removed, he was free. But as he stepped outside the gates of the ludus, onto the streets of Rome, he realized freedom was not what it once was. And now, no one even looked at him. He had survived the games, but he had lost the man he once was. Legacy in the sand. The games continued. New slaves trained, new crowds cheered. But Lucius's name was scratched into tavern walls for years. Lucius the Merciful, they called him. Children reenacted his matches in the streets. And somewhere in the Colosseum, a sword-shaped shadow still lingered in the sand. Not all gladiators died in the arena, but none ever truly left it behind.